Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tech Tip Tuesday. Today, Howard Young, our Senior Sales Architect here at Zadara Storage, will be talking about our backup capabilities with Backup to S3, also known as B2S3. Howard, please take it away.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Today we're going to talk about backup to S3, and um, it's a new feature, relatively new. That is, we came out with it about a year ago, and it's very popular and allows you to do a backup of your storage to S3 or any type of object store. So, for example, if you have in this diagram, if you have a 25 terabyte share, you can back it up directly to Amazon S3, or you can use our new product called Zios, which is coming out this month, and it'll allow you to do a image backup, which is block by block and incremental. This happens to be a test case where we had a customer with a network video recorders attaching their to the VPSA with NFS, and the recorder was basically overwriting the files, and they wanted a way to extend the 25 terabyte share and have it preserved into object store. And doing it, backing up to S3 and doing a restore, they can pull off a day's worth of data just by doing a zero copy clone. And you can go back with all the compression. You can store up to 18 months in S3 in Amazon. It's offsite, and then they can recover at any point in time. As I said, it's a block level image backup. It's part of our enterprise feature set. It's incremental snapshot based. So if you're familiar with our snapshots today, which are applied on a volume or a block or a share level, it uses the same snapshots that is done at that level. You could do a zero copy restoration, and what that allows you to do is mount the share directly onto the VPSA again, and it doesn't take up any space. It just copies the metadata and any files and file structures that are needed to recover the data. That we also have a full restoration, and the full restoration, what that does, it will allow you to mount the data or mount the volume, and it'll start pulling everything out of S3. So if you need to do a complete copy, you can do that. Or if you want to do a zero restoration and access the data as required, you can do that too. So it's it's the best of both worlds. So if you need to do a quick turnaround, grab some files off of a backup tape or backup snapshot, you can do it that way. It's inexpensive OpEx licensing. It starts at 2 cents a gigabyte per month. And so that's a capacity-based license. And so, for example, if you have a terabyte volume, it would run at $20 a month. If you happen to have only, let's say, 500 gigabyte of that terabyte volume, or 50%, there's also a bandwidth charge. So the first copy that you upload will also cost 2 cents for that 500 gig, which would run at $10. And then the next month, if you're only changing, maybe 100 megabytes, it's going to be $2. And the next month, of course, you have a per month capacity charge on that. And that's a pretty straightforward licensing fee that we have. So the next thing what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how simple it is to do a backup. And here I'm logged into my VPSA, and then if you look under the remote storage and the data protection, there is a new thing called remote object store, and that's what you'd have to do to configure a backup job. So this is going to be the repository that I already will be using today, which is in AWS S3, and it's very simple to connect to an object store. We support the S3 interface, or you can go, which is directly into AWS, and you can give a special, the specific region. So if your E2C instances are in Northern Virginia, you want to have your bucket in there. Otherwise, you still have a region-to-region transfer charge, which you want to avoid. So keep your buckets within the same region. Otherwise, you can still use the product and get charged. So that's just the Amazon charge. We also support a custom interface, and this would be any type of object store that you'd have on site. For example, if you were using a Zadara product, you can connect using S3. If you happen to have Zios installed, you would access the interface using this particular dialog here. You'd have to enter your credentials, and you specify if you want to do public IP or over your front-end IP. Now, the difference between the two, if you're in AWS, is that if you have the public IP, the restore charges are approximately 9 cents a gigabyte, so it can be very expensive to restore at that point. Or you can create a proxy using an EC2 instance, and then there's no charges for the pulling the data out within the VPC, and then you just specify that. Now we have on our website we have it's an instruction on how to create a proxy. We use Squid for that, and it's extremely simple to set up. So once you have your object store configured, you can pull things out of S3 just by going right here into your buckets. So from within your S3 bucket, there would be a VPSA. So this happens to be my test VPSA, which is the same one we're working on, and it always has a unique identifier in case you change the name of your VPSA. You can keep going down level by level and pull out volumes for that VPSA, and then you could do a restoration based on a point in time. So here I have something that I did a backup back in October on the 15th, so that was 6-7 months ago, and I could just click on this and do restore, and then give it a new volume. And then I can give it a type of restoration. So there's a full capacity clone and a zero capacity clone. The main difference between these two is that the restore will continue to pull the data out of S3 until you tell it to stop or it completes. The zero capacity clone is on demand, so as you need a file, and if there's any related inodes or file system information that it needs to do to reconstruct or pull the data out of S3, it will start paging that in on demand. So you get really good performance in that case without waiting for the whole backup job to complete. The import C is the same thing, except that this is a full capacity clone, and then it allows you to basically go ahead and pull everything out, and then once it's copied over, then you can access it. You would specify if the data, where to place the data, either on SAS or SSD, and these are the local pools here. If your data happens to be encrypted initially from within the volume, you want to specify that so that we know to reproduce it as an encrypted volume. If you don't do that, you won't be able to access your data even if you have the encryption key. You do a submit, and everything is actually will go ahead and do that. So if that works, it will create a new volume. which is creating right now, and as you can see, you can look at what's going on here. You can look at metering, for example. If you happen to mount it, it'll start pulling data out, but I don't have anything mounted. You basically would mount it at this point in time as a volume, and then just to attach the server. And then I would specify that as an NFS volume because that's what it was, and I would do a submit. Now this particular volume is accessible to, well, it's still doing a restore right now. So let's hold on that. Still doing a create. So as soon as it finishes a create, we'll go ahead and mount it.
Howard, in the meantime, we do have a question from David. He was wondering, when connecting to the remote object storage, or S3, the private address, the management address, can that be changed after you've already done it publicly?
No. What David's referring to is this here. You cannot change that. So to do a backup, or if you want to back up a file, you can specify at the volume level. For example, if I want to do a backup of V1, I could just go here to Data Services and back up the object store and give it a backup name. And then I would specify my AWS account. So if I had more than one account or more than one object store, I can actually go ahead and specify two different destination. But since this is only a single destination that's currently configured, it only brings down one. I can specify hourly, daily, weekly, or I can even do an on-demand. And on-demand is pretty nice. What it does is allows you to go ahead and create the backup as soon as a snapshot is applied. So if you want to do something immediately, you can just go ahead and, from the data services, create a snapshot, and then once the snapshot is generated, then it'll start pushing the data into S3. By default, the data is compressed in flight. It takes up a little bit of your CPU on the controller, but it's worth doing that for two reasons. Number one is it's going to save you on bandwidth charges, so it's going to do, and also because the bandwidth is compressed, it'll allow you to save some space on the bound of time and also space on S3. And then you just go ahead and do that, and it will start doing a backup. So now you can see it has a protection level here. It's being backed up. And then I can look at any object storage backups. You won't see anything go right now until a snapshot is created, which is it's going on right now. But the on-demand is basically create a snapshot, and that will be applied at this point in time. So here I have should come up with a Tech Tip Tuesday snapshot, and then there should be an object store which is being uploaded now. So if you look at the metering for this backup, you should see some data go through as soon as it starts processing the data. So you can always look at your backups. Right now it's doing Xsync, for example. It doesn't have an RPO. And then again, we look at the metering, and then this is the bandwidth it's taking. So it's doing about 20 megabytes a second up to S3, which is pretty good for a backup program for S3. Christy, are there any other questions on that?
We have a best practices question. It seems like when creating a restore job, you'd use the restore option for bigger projects and clones for smaller projects and files. Is that true?
Yes, you want to, for small projects, it sort of depends on what you want to do. So for small projects, if you just need to pull out one or two files, just do a zero copy clone. If you're trying to do a restore for performance, you want to do a full restore, because what will happen is that all the data will be available instead of being paged out of S3. So, so if you're looking for doing like a full restore for performance, do a full restore. Otherwise, you can just pull out files here and there, and you sort of have to live with the performance of what's being extracted from S3.
Okay, great. And that question came from Jen. So Jen, if you have specific questions about the storage that you're using and whatnot, you can email Howard at howard@zadarastorage.com. There it is on the screen. And then his Twitter handle, @HowardY. Tweet at him with questions whenever you want. And then if you go to this landing page, info.zadarastorage.com/TechTipTuesday suggestions, you guys can go in there, submit any kind of topics you'd like us to cover, and Howard will be happy to cover them in the future. So please let us know. And Howard, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about MPIO, which is multipath IO, and it'll be with respect to setting it up on a Microsoft server. It'll be Windows 2012.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It looks like we have no more questions, but again, please follow up if you have any, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.